Welcome to the 24K Life Code podcast, and I am your host, Derick Gant. I have someone that has written an amazing book. Now, truth be told, I haven't read it, but I have read the premise. I have read the background, and I've had a long conversation with the author. So you're going to find out more about her book, about her business, about how she started to write the book. Her name is Shirley Novack. I'm excited. Now listen, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's the only way we can grow our audience. It's the only way we can share our stories. And as you know, we are here to crack the code to your personal success and greatness. And we do that by bringing you individuals that have accomplished things that most other people wish they could accomplish, but haven't yet done it. So we're going to ask her a lot of questions about publishing her book. I know lots of people want to publish a book, but let me tell you just a tad bit about her story before I bring her on. She wrote a book published in 2021, 254 pages, and it's the story of Jacob. Jacob was born in Koretz, Poland in 1904 to a mean-tempered tyrant of a father and a sweet, loving, compassionate mother. At the age of 12, Jacob's mother, Sarah, the sweet, beautiful Sarah, passed away, and Jacob, along with his 9-year-old brother, is sent to live in the care of a brothel. I'm telling you, this is a good story. I don't know where she got it from. It's partially true, according to her. We're going to ask more questions. But anyway, sent to a brothel to live in care of a brothel run by a loving madam named Jordana. It takes Jacob's father 3 long years to send for his sons, and during that time, Jacob suffers many indignities. But when he is raped by a Polish soldier, it molds his life. The shame of this event remains his secret, never to be shared with anyone. That is until a day, many years later, in America, fate brings the Polish soldier back into Jacob's life. Now, she's not going to tell you any more than that. I'm not going to tell you any more than that, because you need to go get the book. It's available on Amazon, and it is called The Story of. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you. The Story of. How did you come up with dot.
That's important.
It's important? Okay. So when you Google it, make sure you add the dot. So how did you come up with the name of the book, The Story of dot.
Well, the dot is significant because at the beginning of the 20th century, a lot of immigrants came to this country from Eastern Europe. A lot ended up in New York City, a lot ended up in Boston, and they all have stories. So the dot signifies their stories.
Okay.
This was my father, loosely based on my father's story. The beginning of it is true. Unfortunately, he was sent to live in a brothel. He was raped by a Polish soldier. Unfortunately, I didn't hear about that until after he passed away.
Really? Are you kidding?
No one, no relatives told me, but I was devastated. Really devastated. Because he was such a sweet, kind person, but he kept it to himself. Wow. So then that was the meat of the story, and the rest of it is fiction.
So tell me about these relatives. Like, how did it come out? He kept this. How old was your father when he left us?
Who knows? We didn't know, but he died in 1984.
Okay. And how old were you? Let's ask that question when he passed away.
Let's see.
Give or take.
About 38.
Okay, so I think so 38. We'll give him at least 20 years before he had you. So we'll say 58 plus. And you never heard of the story. So how did a family member, or how did this come to your awareness after he passed away?
I was the youngest in the whole family.
Oh, okay.
So I have a lot of older cousins, and their my father's brother traveled with him.
Okay.
And his children knew the story.
Wait a minute. Your cousins knew this story.
Yeah.
Did they assume you knew the story?
I don't know. I don't know, but we talked about it.
So how did it first come up? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How did this come up?
We were just talking about my dad because he had when my father died, his funeral was on the 4th of July.
Really?
And we really thought no one would come because it's the 4th of July. He was a poor immigrant from Poland, and he made furniture. That's what he did. And so we took a small chapel at the funeral home. 300 people came.
Wow.
Standing room only. It was unbelievable. And they got up and gave eulogies and started to give really funny stories about my dad. And this went on forever. And so then after the funeral, and when all the family is sitting around talking, a lot of the truth came out.
So it came out at his funeral?
No, after his funeral, when the family was alone.
Well, no. I mean that day, the 4th of July, and they were sitting around talking.
During that week. During that
week.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're sitting there. Now, did your siblings know? Did they know, or you didn't?
No, no one, no.
So nobody in your household knew, and you all found out at the same time.
I think one of my brothers may have supposed that something happened in the brothel, but we never talked about it. You know, I grew up at a time when you didn't talk about anything in front of the children that was uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, ignorance was bliss.
Yeah. So did you know he grew up in a brothel, but you didn't know something happened to him? Or
no, I didn't know any of that.
Wow.
But I did get his father was a horrible, horrible person. And I had the misfortune of meeting him.
I was going to ask, did you meet him? So, so you met him as a child, as an adult, as a child?
Till I was about 12 years old. And he married a person equally as miserable as he was. And in fact, in my book, the only two names that were not changed were my grandfather and his wife, because they did not deserve to be thrown under the bus.
Got you.
You know, they were evil people.
Got you.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so interesting. So you find this out. You're sharing this unfortunate sadness and devastating news with your siblings. When did it turn into, I want to share this story of sorts, because it's fictional, so some of it's true and some of it's not. So how did you do that? Did you have to ask your siblings for permission, or how did that go?
Oh, no. I have a brother who is a historian. He's published 14 books.
14 books?
Yeah, he was head of the history department at Miami in Ohio. And his latest book, which just came out the same day as mine, oddly enough, is on Obama. So he's a stickler for facts. You can't write fiction. It has to be factual, and you have to have your dates right and everything else. But my mind is more creative than that.
Right.
So I started, but I said, you write your book, I'll write mine. And it was almost like a hand was guiding me when I finally decided to sit down and write it. It just, I didn't have an outline. I know how I was going to begin it, but I had no idea where I was going with it. It just came.
Really? Including the ending?
The ending I had a harder time with, I think, because I did not want the book to end.
Right.
I'm sure. If you've written a book, you know that it becomes your child.
Absolutely.
And you become ingrained in the characters. So I didn't want it to end. And then when I finally decided to end it, I just did it.
So it doesn't sound like, and this does not meant to be negative, but it doesn't sound like that your brother was much of a help, given the fact that he was more of a historian and a
no, he did. No, I wouldn't send him any of it until it was done.
Okay. So what did he think once it was done?
Surprisingly, he loved it.
Oh, that is so awesome. I mean, for somebody who's written so many books, that's a big compliment.
However, his relationship, my character in the book, Jacob, even though it's not my father's real life, although the beginning was, Jacob was my father. He was a very dignified, lovable man. He was just very kind. And my brothers do not remember him that way.
Oh, really? Your brothers do not remember your dad being so kind?
Being so, yeah. See, my father was, I was the baby and I was the only girl. And I was the light of his life. I'm sorry, that's going to stop right now.
Okay.
I was the light of his life. He would go out at night, late at night, and bring me and my mom home hot fudge sundaes. And he would always let me have his car. And he didn't with my brothers, but they were a lot older than I was.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many siblings do you have?
2 older brothers.
See that first one, he gets the brunt because this is what he's going to be, and this is what he's going to do, and this is how it's going to happen. And then the second one, you're like, okay, well, we're going to fix a couple things we missed with the other one. By the time you get to the third one, you're like, okay, it's good, whatever. Take the car, I'm fine.
Well, I think it was the fact that I was a female. They wanted a girl.
You were daddy's girl. I
was daddy's girl.
I have 2 sons.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife was so happy we didn't have a girl because she said, you know what? You would let her do anything she wanted to, and you make these boys toe the line. And she knew that because I have a niece, and anytime she stayed with us, she could do no wrong. So I understand your dad 100%.
Oh, no. The only thing I could do wrong was be disrespectful, talk back, get a bad grade in school. And then it was like pounding the chest, oh, where did I fail with you?
Well, he would be so proud of you and your brother, and I'm sure your other brother, if he could see where you are right now. I wonder, what do you wonder about what he would think about the story of ...
I don't know if I ever would have the nerve to show it to him because he was I don't know if I would have found out before he died. He'd be very proud of me for writing a book.
Well, good.
But the content of the book is about him, and it's about a very private part of his life.
Right.
So I don't think he would have been happy with that out in the open.
I understand that.
Or that I even knew. He would not be happy that I knew.
Right.
But he didn't. He died. And he died, just dropped dead one day.
Have you grown, or have you noticed that you grew in a certain way from learning the story and then from writing the story?
Absolutely.
How so?
Oh, yeah. I've always worked, and I've always worked hard, and I've always, had something to do. And whatever I've done, I've thrown myself into it. But this was such a personal accomplishment. And I got to not only love the characters in the book, but they became real to me. And I think it's made me more aware. When I look at people, I'm not judgmental at all. It's like, whatever's good for you is fine as long as you don't hurt anybody. That's all, that's all I care about. I'll live my life, you live your life. But I think it's made me more aware. I tend to study people more.
Okay.
And try to figure out where they're coming from, because I'm writing another book.
Well, so I really don't want to jump into the next book yet, but I do want to ask you this one question about the next book. Have you changed the process, or are you just letting your hand flow? Are you writing the chapters? Are you writing an outline this time? Or are you doing it the same way?
No, but it's coming a lot more. It's harder. It's harder. Well, the other thing is that I've been approached by a publisher.
Really?
That wants to is interested in publishing my next book. So I'm under the gun to produce.
Wow. So how did that happen?
I did a podcast, and one of the podcasts I've done said, I hate historical fiction. I've only read 2 historical fiction books in my life, and I hate historical fiction, but I couldn't put yours down. I love your book. I have a friend who has a publishing company. Can I send him your contact information. And this guy called me like right away.
Really?
And so, so I've been talking to his editor, who has the final say. And so I mean, I'm not committed. They haven't committed to me yet because but I am giving myself a deadline.
And did you feel a sense of like wow, or what did you feel when they approached you and you started the conversation? I know you haven't committed, but when you started, I've written a book, and if a publisher approached me, I might not come down from the clouds. So that's why I'm asking you, how did it feel when somebody came to you and said, look,
surreal. It really did. It did. And I've had long conversations with the editor that go way beyond publishing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we've become really good friends.
Excellent.
And she's given me some good pointers.
Okay. So do you think you're going to go that direction, or you're not sure yet?
If they accept the book,
mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to go with them.
Okay.
Because they do it all.
They do it all. I love it. So let's talk about that process, because that's the part that I think people don't really know about. And I think that, they probably don't know about the writing either. But let's talk about the publishing process. Let's talk about the entire process that you've experienced, in doing your first book. Did your brother help you with some of the mechanics on the back end, or
Nope.
Did you have to do it all yourself?
Nothing. No, because he comes from an academic
mm-hmm.
point of view. So he's published through like Columbia University or,
mm-hmm.
through one of those places. He has an agent, he has a publisher, he has all that, but in the world of academia,
right?
Not fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So, and really, we do things very differently, and I just wanted this to be my book and do it my way.
Okay, so how did you get the book edited? Let's start with that.
Well, I have a good background in English, so the book really, believe it or not, needed very little editing. Okay. However, knowing that I couldn't just go to Random House or Simon & Schuster and say, hi, here I am,
Right.
I just researched publishing because I didn't want to self-publish either.
Okay.
So I heard about hybrid publishing,
okay,
which is where you put some money up front, which I thought was small considering what they do for you. And if they accept your book, they don't take a dime more until you've made back your initial investment.
I love it.
So I came across Fulton Books.
Okay.
And I liked the reviews. I liked everything I heard about them. And they said, send us your manuscript. And we'll call you in a few weeks and let you know if we'll accept it or not. And they called me in 3 days.
Wow. It was a great book.
They said, we want to sign you. And from that point on, the pandemic kind of stopped it a little bit because of the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was supposed to come out last December of 21, but it really didn't come out until March of 22.
Oh, okay. So
but it was easy.
Was it? So now how much did you have to put up front, or is it different for every book? Or I'm sure it's different given the number of pages and the size and those type of things.
It was actually $3,500.
Okay, so $3,500, and then they did everything else.
Everything. They let me design the cover.
Really? I wish I'd have known about that. I'd have done that if they accepted
from what I understand, no one lets you,
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know about the hybrid. I self-published and I hired a professional editor. I was completely blessed because the editor I hired, I'm a financial consultant. So the editor I hired was an editor for a lot of Dave Ramsey's books. So she knew about financial writings. And so the entire book is not about finance, but a decent portion of it is about finance. So I got really blessed to find such a high quality editor. But if I'd have known about the hybrid, I might have chosen to do that because I still had to do all the other things.
Yeah.
So I didn't do the editing, but I did the other things. And believe me, you are brilliant because I had 14,000 edits from the editor on my first draft. So I had a lot of fixing to do. I
had, knock on wood, there. In fact, I ended up correcting some of the editor's mistakes. But here's what's really interesting. I've been doing all these book clubs.
Mm-hmm.
The book has gotten great reviews. I've only had one critique, and you won't believe what it was.
What was it?
At one of my book clubs, the woman was a retired English teacher. And she said to me, I have one critique of your book. She said, you end some of the sentences with prepositions. And she said, that's a no-no. And I said, well, I'll look it over. And because I don't understand what well, years ago in Old English, you could not end a sentence in a preposition. But now writing is more like you're talking to somebody.
Like you're speaking,
and
exactly.
Of course, the story of is a preposition.
I'm sitting there laughing because I'm looking at the title and go, how does she make it past the cover?
Yeah, I know. So, so I just was very nice to her, but she was dead wrong.
Well, and that's generational, and luckily you didn't have to worry about that. And I get that. I fought with that a little bit myself because I knew the rule, but I'm like, I'm not going to acknowledge that. And the editor didn't fix it. I'm good. So, well, that's great. So tell me, how long did it take you to actually write once you started putting pen to paper?
Well, I started the book like 10 years ago.
Okay.
However, then I put it down, and then I picked it up, and then I put it down, and then I had got a new shoulder. So that set me back. Once I sat down and started writing, it took me a year.
You will not believe this. You won't believe this. I started writing my book 10 years, picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down. And then I was doing a masterclass on goal setting and doing some major master goals or major goals, having 2 or 3 major goals. And I'm going to finish. I vowed to finish my book in this masterclass. I'm going to finish my book this year. And so I started writing in March. I literally trashed the first 2 chapters I had written, just tore them up, started over. And by Father's Day, I had the first draft complete.
Wow.
And by Father's Day, I had it complete. It's 22 chapters. And, but I actually got it finished. I told you I had 14,000 mistakes. I got it finished by, I think it was mid-August. By mid-August.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
The world will keep moving. So I finished it like in August, and I got my final draft, I think, in September, and it was published in December. So it was finished and published in December. So we have very similar stories, except for the mistakes that I made.
How many pages?
It is 364 pages.
Wow.
Yes, I had this little thing, and I'm going to ask for forgiveness from all of my listeners or anybody that's listening that takes insult. But, when I decided to write the book, I said, I want a real book. And I actually told this to the editor. I said, listen, I am writing a real book. We're not writing a book with some poems and a couple pictures. This is a real book. And if you don't think it's a real book, then just tell me and I'll go ahead and stop. And I'll call it a day, and I'll just say this isn't my alleyway. And she gave me, and she had edited the Dave Ramsey book. So she goes, no, you got something here. It's really good. You got a lot of cleaning up to do. You need to rearrange some of the flow, but it's really good stuff. And so that's why, I went with it, because I didn't want just, I printed it in hard copy first because I wanted people to know it was a serious effort. Your book's available in hard copy. It's available in paperback, and it's available in Kindle and audio. And audio. I haven't done the audio yet, but
I'm sorry I did it in audio.
Are you really?
I did it in audio for all my friends that are losing their hearing.
Their eyesight. They're losing their eyesight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Right. They're losing their eyesight.
Yeah, okay.
Wrong sensor.
Wrong sensor.
But it's not selling. And I went with a big company that does the advertising and the marketing. Mm-hmm. You have to market yourself. Right. No matter what, you still have to market yourself. Can I ask you what your book is? Your book an informational book? Is it a nonfiction? What is it?
It's nonfiction. What the book is it's a manual of how to to process your 5 core areas of your life. For instance, you need to have great finances, you need to have great relationships, you need to be physically fit, mentally fit, and you need to be emotionally fit. Or spiritually fit. So we cover these 5 areas. And it's not like, hey, Derick did this and he became successful, because I don't believe that people can mimic other people's success. Like your dad, he had experiences that no one else ever had. So I didn't write the book to do that. What I did was I said, hey, if you really want to have an incredible financial life, here's how you start that ball rolling. And I wrote that section pretty high level. The other sections I call a basic college level 101. So they're, how do you meditate? How do you set goals? What is creative visualizations? What is the reticular activating system? So these are physical things in each and every one of us that we need, that most people have no clue about, in order to be successful. How much sleep do you need? How much water do you need? How much exercise do you need? And I don't say you need 3 days. I say you need to do these things to figure out how to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So the book is called the 24K Life Code, as you can see there. But and the analogy is simply this, and we're here to talk about your book, but the analogy is, to get gold, it has to go through an intense heating process to get rid of all of the impurities. So like gold, we have to go through a process. For instance, you went through 10 years until you decided, I'm going to sit down and go through the pain of finishing this. And then you got through all of the things that limited you the prior 9 years in order to successfully get your book. And so my analogy is that if we do those things, then we become our best value in the world.
Love it.
Our books.
I love it.
Thank you.
Of course, pandemic also had something to do with it.
Yes.
I mean, staying home and.
Okay. Yes. Well, luckily, mine was published literally 3 months before the pandemic. It got published December of 19, and the pandemic hit in March, full swing in March of 2020. So I was lucky that way, or maybe I would have written it during the pandemic since I was home twiddling my thumbs. We were actually still working. We were in good shape, thank God. But do you have a process for those out here that want to write a book? Do you have a process for this second book? And I know it's a little bit more difficult. And when I mean process, for me to be successful, I had to write. I wrote almost every night after I finished work, and I wrote all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that's how I was able to do it. And by Father's Day of, literally about a little less than 6 months. Do you have a process to your creative flow and your writing to help you get the second book where you want it to be?
I walk 3 miles every morning. That's where my book gets written.
Excellent.
Honest to God.
And do you record it, or
No.
You're just thinking about
it. And I visualize.
Visualization.
Yep, creative visualization. And I create the characters and what I want them to do. And I come home and I write. But there are days that I can't write.
Right.
There are days that it's not there. One thing that I was really stuck on, I was stuck on the flow of this one. The first one just flowed. It just chapter after chapter. And this one, I was having a problem with the flow. And I spoke to the editor of that publishing company. And she said to me, let me give you one recommendation. She said, start the book from the middle.
Really?
She said, because something was going to happen in the middle of the book. She said, start the book that way, and that will capture your audience. And you know what? I said, brilliant.
That is brilliant. That is
and I
brilliant.
Sat down, and immediately it worked.
Wow, that's great news. I mean, that's a great tip for people that are writing fiction. So writing nonfiction is a little bit easier because you kind of, you just got to do your research.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of have an idea of how you want things to flow. But once you have the general idea of how you want to take people through a flow, you're just really doing research, and you're obviously putting words to your experience. But that is amazing advice. I can really see how that that works.
Because rather than building up to the event, you start with the event and then you back it up.
Nice. I love it. But what did she say about the ending? Like,
I
how
don't
do you?
I don't have an ending to
I
me.
know, that's so crazy to me. That is so crazy. I love it. But you creative people, man, God bless you for being able to come up with those things. So what type of, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's one acknowledgement in my book, only one.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the 4th grade, I had a teacher, and if anyone knows who he is, Mr. John Willett from Boston. He's probably dead by now, but I was 9 years. Well, we were his first class out of college, so conceivably he could still be alive, but someone in his family would be. And he gave us an assignment to write a poem about spring. And he was so impressed with my poem, he made me read it to the entire school. And he came up to me afterwards and said, "Don't ever stop writing. Someday you are going to be a great writer."
Oh.
I was 9 years old.
He planted a seed in you.
He planted a seed in me. And so I've always paid attention to my writing, to my term papers, to my kids' term papers, to, writing letters, so I've never published anything, but I've never stopped writing.
Well, it's obviously in the bloodline because your brother's writing, even though it's nonfiction, and you're writing, and you had very little errors in your editing. So it's in your blood.
It's in my blood. Well, I wanted to be an English teacher.
There it is.
But I didn't. I went another route.
You became an interior designer.
No, actually, I became a surgical assistant.
You became a surgical assistant.
My first degree was in laboratory science. And there was a research group in Boston that were studying surgery on fetuses.
Ooh.
Okay.
There was no such thing as fetal surgery in those days. And I read about them, and I read everything I could about them, and they were looking for help. They were looking for an assistant, and they wanted someone with a master's degree, which I did not have. But they said that my enthusiasm was so overwhelming, they had to hire me.
Aww.
Also, I'm sure they didn't have to pay me as much. So I worked. We were groundbreaking. We did the first surgery on a human fetus.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And then when research grants became cut off, Nixon was in office, and we lost a lot of money in research grants, and it became boring because we didn't have anything to do. So I went and taught the medical assisting program at a school and anatomy and physiology. So I've gone full 180.
And today you do some interior design.
Then after I had my kids,
mm-hmm.
I went back to school and got a degree in design and started my own business.
Well, you are a confluence of amazing of amazing dichotomies. I mean, that is amazing.
A lot different. I never intended to do that, but I hired 2 interior designers to do some work for me, and they hired me. Honest to God. They ended up hiring me, so I got all my groundwork from them, and then when I left, I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I took 1 course a semester for 9 years.
Wow.
But all that time I was building my practice.
Good for you.
Because I had 3 little kids at home, so I had to do this at night.
Well, you have an amazing story. The story of ... is amazing. You are amazing as your own story. You are. And I hope that people are inspired by the method and the madness and the time that you invested in not letting anything. You are a picture of grit. I mean, taking 10 years and to get the book, and then taking 10 years to get your degree.
Well, so did you. You took 10 years.
I am a picture of grit too, but we're here to acknowledge you today. And it is very impressive that when you put all the things that you've mastered together and to become the person that you are and offer the beauty and the joy to the world that you do. So I wanted to congratulate you and honor you and say that I am very impressed with who you are.
Derick, thank you. That's very kind.
It's very true. It's very true. So I thank you. And if you have any parting words, I would love for you to share them.
Well, if you wake up in the morning and you're still breathing, there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Amen to that. With that, we'll be right back. You heard it. I mean, what an amazing story. Did you hear? Listen, I'm a financial expert. For 30 plus years, all I've done is financial stuff. It might be for financial literacy for kids. It might be managing wealthy people's money. It might be building communities' finances. But this woman is incredible. Fetal surgery, author, English prolific editor. I mean, listen to all the things. Raised 3 kids, wrote a story of her dad, and she wakes up and she smiles every day, and she is on book number 2, something that I haven't even thought about. I hope that you all will go to Amazon and get the story of ... It's available in every format that you can imagine: audio, paperback, Kindle, hardback. So if you want to learn more about how you can do these things, I'm sure that we'll provide her email in the information, and she may even do some coaching. Who knows what she's going to do next? She is simply amazing. Listen, like, share, and subscribe. You know what? She has cracked her own code. She is the definition of 24K life. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you real soon.